Yeah, that original video was way too long. So here's part three, the last of three parts. While we're back here, let's talk about where you're going to put your paddle. In a pedal kayak, you don't have too many options. You can stick it in the paddle park if you have one of those in the front, but that's actually going to get in the way when you pedal. You can run it down the side of your kayak, but then that might get in the way of your anchor and your anchor trolley. So I know some people even stick them back here in the flush mount rod holders, and they're sticking up in the back. So what we did is we got a couple paddle clips, engineered them just like we did the PVC gearhead adapter, and now we can stick the paddle in here, put it horizontal to the water to minimize wind resistance, and this becomes a very nice and convenient way to store it. You know, you can adjust the angle here if you want, and you can move this, since this clip is really good, it's not moving, you can move this as far back as you need to. Let's talk about your rear storage compartment. This can really be noisy. You know, when you've got stuff back here sliding around, it makes a lot of noise, scares fish. So what I recommend you do is you go get basically just a doormat, cut it to fit, and you can put that back in here, and now even if you don't have my anchor hanger, you know, if you're careful, you can put your anchor back here very silently. Now for the big argument. Do you use a milk crate or not? You know, all fishing kayaks have room in the back where a milk crate will fit in there nicely. And you can pack that full of a lot of stuff, and I've got some videos and a playlist on how to create a nice custom milk crate, even with a shelf up here on the top. But I decided not to use the milk crate because I realized that last year I was taking too much stuff with me. So now I've got everything down to this very small toolbox, which will fit in nicely right here, along with my bait bucket, which sits in back of my seat, because I fish with live mullet here in the inshore quite a bit. And so far, after maybe 100 hours of trips, this has been just fine for me. And if you use a bait bucket, then I strongly recommend you put a little air hose in there to one of these air stones that you can get in any pet store for an aquarium. And I run mine to a small aerator that I've got hooked up here on the back of my seat. And now when I'm moving, all I do is hook that up, turn on the aerator, and now I've got air going into my bait and keep it alive. You still got to dunk them, you know, every 5 to 10 minutes or so, depending on how many you have in the bucket. But this is a great way to, one, keep the aerator dry and keep your bait alive. Now, let's get to the multiple $100 mistake that I made when I set up this kayak. If your boat's heavy, you're going to want to have some way to get it from your vehicle to the water. And for me, I decided to go with the Boonedox landing gear because the shaft here was going to be high enough to keep my rudder from dragging on the ground when I put it on and off my truck. But the mistake I made was buying these wheels, the normal skinny wheels. I should have bought the big old fat wheels. And the reason was I never thought that I'd be running across sand. When I was talking to the vendor about this, the comment was beach. Well, there are a lot of places where the grass is soft, you hit mud, things like that, where these have become a godsend. And I ended up paying an extra, probably almost $250 to replace these wheels and shaft with the fat wheels and the longer shaft. So please think about where you're going to wheel your kayak if you're going to buy Boonedox or any other kayak cart, because many of them come with the fat wheels that make it easier to go across soft ground. Something I forgot to mention outside that's important with these Boonedox is I've seen people commenting that the pressure on the two bolts right here causes some kayaks to crack. Now I don't think that's going to be a problem on my kayak because I've got the Boonedox mounted so far to the rear that the entire weight of this heavy boat isn't going to be on these wheels. But risk mitigation is always important. So that's why I installed a couple big slabs of HDPE above and below to give a little more surface area to spread that weight, and I recommend you do the same thing. In fact, Jackson actually sells the HDPE slabs that's actually upgraded from HDPE on their website. The last thing, before I get into the two modifications I made for GoPro photography, is what I did with the rear hatch. The rear hatch is big enough, and I use this to store my cast net, but cast nets get wet. So I didn't want a bunch of wet, stinky, fishy smelling stuff on the inside of my kayak. So I got this very inexpensive round waste basket from Dollar Tree for maybe $5, cut it to fit, and then that fits in there perfectly. It also, if I wanted to put something else in here, keeps those items from sliding farther down into the two channels underneath the kayak. If you don't want to use one of these and you don't have something nasty and wet, you know, you can get one of those laundry bag things that I showed you up in the front hatch and put it here as well. Now, let's get into the two hacks I did for photography. The first GoPro hack I did was I put my Scotty mount here in the brackets that the Jackson Coosa came with, and I've got the appliance that I made out of PVC, and the video on this will be in the description. And I can put this back here into this mount, and now I can rotate this camera in pretty much any angle to get side shots. And it's basically just a Scotty mount with PVC, and you're good to go. The key thing about this is to make sure you have enough of an angle right here to where when the camera takes its pictures, you're not seeing this bar in the way. So the other one is for front-facing shots where you want to get the head. For the front shots, I did one of my gear head adapters, and I made this PVC assembly, and in that I put a stabilizer, and my camera goes right here. Now this can float and rotate freely and be reasonably stabilized and level when I'm moving. I also have my lightning detector right here, which is a critical piece of equipment here in the summer with all the pop-up thunderstorms you get, and it actually works. Well, that's it. I don't think I forgot anything. I've made so many hacks and changes that it's kind of hard to keep track of them. If there's something I forgot to do, or you would recommend I add to this kayak, hey, I'm all for that, because it's all about comfort, accessibility, and a great day out fishing. Throw them in the comments below. Thanks.